there is still a lot to be determined in the NFL playoff race. Who will get the second wild card, the sixth and final seed in the NFC Conference? Will it be the Minnesota Vikings or the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions? And how fitting is it that the final seed in the NFC playoff race is coming down to the two teams that competed in last season's NFC Championship game? Just something that feels so unexpected. I mean, a lot of people this year thought the Eagles were going to continue dominance as they did last season. But the Eagles had some problems throughout the season. Injuries again, but this time they couldn't respond as well as they did last season. But ever since turning the page to Nick Foles, the Eagles, they seem to come to life. But was that too little too late? We will find out this Sunday. And the Vikings, signing Kirk Cousins in the offseason. A lot of people, like myself, and I will admit that, thought that now that the Vikings have a quarterback that's better than Case Keenum, maybe that was the one thing they needed to win a Super Bowl for the state of Minnesota. And for one of these teams, they're going to get a chance to... The Vikings, they get a chance to redeem themselves in the playoffs. And the Eagles, they get a chance to... They could get a chance to repeat. Only one team gets the chance, but who's it going to be? And we'll find out my picks. But who's going to win the AFC North? That's still up for grabs. Will be the Baltimore Ravens, who clinches the AFC North and a playoff spot with a win over the Browns or Steelers loss. And the Steelers, can they take care of business? They got to win against the Bengals, and they got to hope for the Browns. Who would have thought at the beginning of the season that Week 17, the Steelers' playoff fate is in the hands of themselves and the Cleveland Browns? Kind of something unexpected. And who will win the win in your in game between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans? The Titans, they had a strong start to the season, but then they kind of had a roller coaster type season. The Colts, Andrew Luck was coming back this season. I thought the Colts were going to win maybe about 6 games at the most, maybe 6 or 8, but the Colts have a chance to make the playoffs. So which team is going to win the win in your in game? It's win or go home for the Colts and Titans. And we're going to get to my Week 17 predictions. Last week, the 2-2 against the spread, that's not something I'm proud of. There's one more chance to end the season on a high note. I'm probably not going to have a good percentage, but it's better than a lot of people. I mean, I've let some good picks get to my head this season, and it's kind of led me into some trouble for the weeks on ahead. But this is a chance to end strong against the spread. And I've got to kind of go out of order a bit because I wrote these picks down as we were moving along in the season. Like I had the order of the matchups written out in advance. So I got to kind of go through kind of the ones that don't matter first and then get to the ones that matter at the end. So it won't take too long because we're already 3.5 minutes into this. So first one I'm going to talk about Miami versus Buffalo. The Dolphins and Bills. Doesn't matter. This really isn't for anything. Just for pride and S's and G's, I guess. But I'll go with the Dolphins. And the next one that's not so important is the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that one's not important at all. So I'm going to take the Falcons to win a meaningless game. I mean, I don't know why the Falcons are choosing to win now at the end of the season when they're eliminated from playoff contention. But they couldn't win against the Cowboys or the Ravens or anything like that. I mean, this has just been a disappointing season for the Falcons, whether if it's been injuries or just stupid play calling. I mean, look, I knew the Falcons season was over the second that the headline came out of Keanu Neal out for the season with a torn Achilles. Or an ACL or whatever it was. It just doesn't matter. I knew the Falcons season was over at that point, and I'll even pull up the tweet that from that day. I'll even pull it up. I'll even link it and everything. So the Falcons will win a meaningless game. And the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers, I think the Packers win a meaningless game. So that's we got 3 meaningless games out of the way. Let's see. Arizona versus Seattle. That's kind of meaningless. The Seahawks have already clinched their spot in the playoff, but I still think they want to play for the win. Although what I've been hearing this week is the Arizona Cardinals are going to part ways with their first-year head coach, Steve Wilks. And to be honest, I am not all for firing head coaches for one season. I mean, he was just put into a bad position to begin with. I feel like he was just set up for failure. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals are just 3 seasons removed from an appearance in the NFC Championship game. And then last season, Bruce Arians announces retirement. And they bring in first-year head coach Steve Wilks. And already, right off the bat, the objective is to replace Carson Palmer. Because Carson Palmer announced retirement in the offseason. Larry Fitzgerald, he's somehow still there, which I thought he was going to retire too. But you sign Sam Bradford and then you draft Josh Rosen. Which I mean, we're not really inept. We knew that Josh Rosen was going to play at some point. We knew he was going to start by the end of the season. Like, we're not inept. We knew that Josh Rosen was going to start. But you just have to give time for these things. I mean, it's just one season. I mean, just think about, like, maybe what the future could hold. Just Josh Rosen just seems promising. Christian Kirk, he seems promising. I mean, as an A&M follower and fan of a team that I have followed for over a decade, Christian Kirk is a promising wide receiver. He has got potential. So whoever the Cardinals bring in, if they actually do follow through with this, hopefully it's an offensive-minded coach. Hopefully it's somebody that's offensive-minded, that Josh Rosen has potential. In fact, I'll even say this. All 5 of the quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round in the last NFL draft. So we're talking Baker Mayfield. We're talking Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson. And yes, I know I messed up the order, but I'll prove. Here's my point. All 5 of those quarterbacks, they have potential. Look what Lamar Jackson's doing for the Ravens right now. He's got the Ravens in a position to get to the playoffs after it looked so bleak after week 8 of the season, after that missed extra point against the Saints to tie it up. I thought that could have been the season breaker for the Ravens, and I thought it was the time. And John Harbaugh was probably going to get fired. They were going to part ways with him. I mean, in fact, there was a video on Talkin' and Grubbing, a channel that subscribes to this channel and that watches frequently. And I'll put the link of that channel down below. Very underrated channel, very underappreciated channel in my opinion. It deserves a lot more views than it's getting. But there was a video that came out, and I think, hang on a second, I'm gonna check because I think I may have left a comment on that video. And yes, that video came out about a month ago. About a month ago, the Ravens were talking about parting ways with Jim Harbaugh at the end of the season. So this was not even maybe a month or 2 months ago, but I thought originally that he may have one more trick up his sleeve. And I do feel like I remember talking about it. And I'm sure that someone out there has been keeping tabs on me and can even say that I made a statement that starting Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, that was John Harbaugh's one last trick up his sleeve. And this trick worked out for him. Lamar Jackson has saved John Harbaugh's job. And now they're talking about an extension. So now, the only thing that would even make this even more of an awesome story is if he pulls off the Colin Kaepernick and leads the Ravens to the Super Bowl, which I think could actually happen, because I think if the Ravens get to the playoffs, I think they're the most dangerous team in the AFC. Because the saying goes, offense wins you games, but defense wins you championships. And the Ravens have the best defense based off by statistics and numbers. And this Ravens defense is nothing to mess around with. They held the Chiefs, one of the top, if not the top offense in the NFL, to less than 28 points. So that's kind of something to keep an eye out on. So anyway, back to the point, back to what the main idea of this is the picks. So we've already covered the ones that don't matter. Let's cover the ones that do matter. Well, the Cowboys and Giants, I think the Cowboys will win that one, but something tells me they're probably going to rest their starters. They don't want to risk any injuries. The starters will probably play the first half of the game, and then I think they'll let the backups play. But I still think the Cowboys end up winning this game. Because I don't know. They're probably going to shut Odell down in this one, because Odell hasn't played in the last 2 weeks, and I'm assuming that they just want to shut him down, don't want to suffer a career-ending injury by mistake. Next, we got the Chargers and the Broncos. I'm liking the Chargers. I think the Chargers, they're going to try to play to win. Because the Chargers, they still could have a chance to even get the number 1 seed. They still got a chance for a first-round bye. So the Chargers, they know there's still something to play for. All right, next, San Francisco versus Los Angeles Rams. I'm going with the Rams because I think they still got something to play for. Although maybe not. The Rams, they still got to clinch a first-round bye. So they still got to clinch that. So I think the Rams, their stars will play. But Gurley is questionable. The Bengals and Steelers, I like the Steelers to take care of business. So you've done that one. All right, Panthers and the Saints. Now the Saints have already clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC, so it behooves them to rest their starters in this game. But I think the starters may end up playing for maybe the first couple series in the game. They may play till they get about a 14-21 lead. They may play the first half and then let Taysom Hill quarterback. That'd be interesting to see Taysom Hill play a full half of football at quarterback. But I think the Saints, I think they'll still win because with Taylor Heinicke, the quarterback now for the Panthers right now, with Cam Newton being shut down for the season, I still think the Saints can pull this one off. Next with the Jets and the Patriots, I'm picking the Patriots because the Patriots, they still got something to play for. They still got to try to clinch a first-round bye. They still got a shot for it. So I think the Patriots, they still got something to play for. All right, so I'm just doing this off of suspense. So in the picks so far, I predicted that the Steelers will beat the Bengals. So next we got the Browns and the Ravens. And based off of my picks so far, a Browns win over the Ravens will put the Steelers in the playoffs. But with a Ravens win, the Ravens get to the playoffs. And winning the Browns and the Ravens game, if the Ravens don't win this game, John Harbaugh is going to just forever have nightmares about Week 17 games. But this year, I think the Ravens get their redemption. Lamar Jackson, he's going to be a difference maker in this one. The Browns did beat the Ravens 12-9 in overtime earlier this season, but that was with Wacko Flacco at quarterback. And this time, it's Lamar Jackson, the truth. I like the Ravens in this one. And to clinch a playoff spot. Okay, so next we got the Philadelphia Eagles and Washington Redskins. I'm taking the Eagles because you know the Eagles are going to play hard. You know with Nick Foles at quarterback. Nick Foles, the Eagles just seem to play a lot differently with Nick Foles at quarterback than with Carson Wentz. It just seems like something ignites the Eagles when Nick Foles is out there. Just these last 2 weeks. It just feels like that offense is clicking a lot more this season with Nick Foles out there. All right, so the Eagles have won the game in my predictions. So with a Vikings win, the Vikings get in and the Eagles get knocked out. But with the Bears win, the Vikings will get knocked out and the Eagles are in. So winning the Bears and the Vikings game, I have the Chicago Bears. And based off of that prediction, the Vikings are out and the Eagles are in. Kirk Cousins, his entire career, the Vikings have not beaten a over 500 team this season. They have not done that all season. And Kirk Cousins, he always seems to choke in games that matter, in these big-time games. And this is a big-time game. It's win and you're in. And I think the Vikings. In fact, I'll even set the scene. I mean, it's a very familiar scene. Let's just say that the Vikings are down by 2 points. And in comes Dan Bailey to try to kick a 47-yard field goal with about, let's just say, maybe 59 seconds left. And this is for a spot in the playoffs. And it's wide left. Kind of a very familiar scene, right? Well, it's kind of going to be... It's honestly going to be a running gag at that point for Vikings fans. Because how many times throughout the playoffs have the Vikings just been haunted by missed field goals? I believe it was the 97 NFC Championship game with their kicker not missing a field goal inside of like he made all these field goals in a row where he didn't miss one all season long or something like that. Then he finally missed one, and it was a chance to give the Vikings a 10-point lead with about 2.5 minutes left to solidify a spot in the Super Bowl. That was a worse one, but what could have been worse was Blair Walsh missing a 27-yard field goal in -6 degrees, and it was just wide left. And this time around, if it comes down to a field goal, it's going wide left. So the Vikings are out in this scenario based on predictions, and the Eagles are in. Alright, so we've talked about all of the games. Well, Oakland and Kansas City, I like Kansas City to win and solidify the number 1 seed. Jacksonville, Houston, I'm picking Houston because I figure that Houston's going to want to play because they still got something to play for in a way. They could have a chance. Alright, so now we're at the final game, the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. This is the game that has been flexed to Sunday Night Football. It's win and you're in. We are uncertain about the status of Marcus Mariota. And with that, I'm going to pick the Colts. And I would have picked the Colts whether Marcus Mariota was in or out. Because I just think the Colts, I feel like they've been a much more consistent team. I feel like the Colts have been a lot better lately when it's been mattering. And I'm picking the Colts to pull off the win over the Titans to get a spot in the playoffs. So now I've got picks against the spread. Now this is the 4 games I have against the spread this week. The final week, last chance to finish off strong. Here are the picks. Atlanta +1, Chicago +5, Houston -7, and Indianapolis in a pick'em, as there's no line for that right now. It's to be determined. So those are my picks for Week 17. Be sure to come back for the NFL playoff assessment. For those of you that don't know how that works, it's where I rank all the 12 teams that are competing in the NFL playoffs, and it's kind of like my NFL playoff assessment / power rankings. In those power rankings from 1 to 12, it's based off of what I think is the likelihood of that team winning the Super Bowl. So 1 is the highest probability, with 12 being the lowest. So that's how it works. Be sure to tune into that. It'll probably be after the games are all wrapped up in Week 17. Definitely we're going to have it out there by New Year's Day. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.